This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by promoter Eddie Hearn here in London. Eddie, how are you?
It's very bright, Andrew. Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited for this Saturday. I think there's so much boxing going on this weekend, I think, and even the haters will say we have the best card in town, but we'll see on Saturday night. Big night for Whyte, great undercard, particularly Gorman against Wardley, obviously Craig Richards against Bolotniks as well, big fight for Sandy Ryan, Pat McCormick over there making his matchroom debut, Chev Clark, Mark Dickinson making his matchroom debut as well. A lot going on. Big night at Wembley Arena live on DAZN.
So there's a fair bit to work for. You mentioned McCard's front there. Have you had any conversations with BT at all to try and make sure the main events don't clash?
Actually, Frank Smith said to me yesterday that he's spoken to George Warren just about that. So it's just a sign that the relationship's a little bit better and the communication streams are better. Obviously, they've got a fight. We've got a big heavyweight fight. It would make sense to try. It's going to be very difficult. Like, the problem is, unless they want to go after, they're going to clash with Wardley Gorman, which is another great fight as well. So it's very difficult, but at least there'll be a conversation to see how that can be played out.
Do you think an outcome will come for that one? Because I'm sure a lot of boxing fans would like to watch both of those, mate.
There'll be a conversation about it, which is as good as there can be, because Frank and George are both sensible. And if they can find a way that suits everybody, I'm sure they'll make it happen.
Whyte-Franklin for yourself though, Dillian's return after that defeat to Tyson Fury, teamed up with Buddy McGirt. Talk about that move, Eddie.
I think it's a great move. I mean, Dillian's been very loyal to his training team, who are a very good team as well for a long time. Sometimes you need a change. You know, he's coming off a defeat. He's been training in Portugal for a long time. Moved out to LA to be with Buddy McGirt. I think it's a great matchup. Buddy McGirt's a fantastic trainer. And this is the, I don't like saying final run because it makes it sound like it's the end, but this is the last phase of Whyte's career and he needs to get it right. And he's putting everything into it like he always has to get the most out of his ability. He looks great, he's very confident, and I think you're going to see a very good performance. But I also see if Jermaine Franklin gets it right, and getting it right really is about dealing with the pressure, he's going to be a very dangerous opponent this weekend because he can really fight. Everybody knows about him in America. He's 21-0, and he's looking at Whyte saying, you're coming off a KO defeat. I can change my life on Saturday night. Put my name in the hat for Joshua and others as well. So Dillian's got to be switched on throughout.
Just on that front, Jermaine Franklin, well known in America, as you say, maybe not so much over here. Do you feel like people are overlooking him in the UK market?
Yeah, definitely, and rightly so, Andy. Like, I think most people just feel, oh, they've found an American to bring over. We've found an unbeaten American who might not have beaten anyone at elite level, but everybody knows he's a very good heavyweight. And also, don't forget, I keep talking about Whyte is coming off a knockout defeat. It was to Tyson Fury, but still at the same time, the pressure's on him. If he gets beat on Saturday night, I don't know where he goes from there, in all honesty. So he wants to look good winning. So Jermaine Franklin can go in, he keeps talking about the uppercut. They would have studied everything. They've got a very, very good training team as well. And he's an old school fighter with an old school team. And they'll be well prepared for this fight.
We've obviously seen the work Buddy McGirt's done with Callum Smith since they teamed up. So for Dillian now, what are you hoping he shows on Saturday night?
Just experience, knowledge, a different look. You know, Buddy McGirt knows the game inside out. I'm sure he's watched a lot of Whyte. Sometimes it's just good to freshen it up. And I think he'll be a very good addition to the team.
The Anthony-Joshua fight has been spoken about for next year if Dillian comes through unscathed. Is the plan for AJ to still have one more before that? Or? Maybe.
I mean, a lot depends on Saturday night. You know, if Dillian comes through, how he comes through, if he's ready to go again in that first part of next year. Jermaine Franklin would be an obvious opponent if he was to win as well. If we do Whyte, we'll probably go straight to a stadium. So do we do that in the summer? Do we do that in the spring? I don't know. But AJ will be tuned in, and we're pretty close to announcing AJ's date at least for his next fight. We want to get that date locked in so he can start camp at the beginning of the year, get his training team in order for December, and then move forward and be active in 2023.
What is the rough date for AJ? I know you can't say too much yet.
It's going to be end of March, maybe first week of April, but he wants to start camp basically as soon as Christmas is over. So that's about the right period to get back in the ring.
What's that list down to in terms of names?
I mean, again, a lot depends on, a lot depends on Saturday night, honestly. Like, he wants to fight Whyte. I've told Jermaine Franklin, if you win this fight, you will fight AJ, basically. So there's all the motivation he needs. But at the same time, is he having a new training team? Do they want him to have another fight before he fights Whyte in the summer? I mean, to get two of Whyte, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in 2023, would be a great year. And to get all three of them would be fantastic, but we won't get carried away just yet. But he wants the big fights, but he also knows, when I talk about Dillian Whyte's last phase, AJ's coming up to that phase as well, where he's got to get it right.
When we last spoke in Abu Dhabi, you mentioned kind of a communication picking back up between yourself and Shelley Finkel over the Wilder fight. Has there been anything else since?
No, not since. I mean, I know that obviously Deontay Wilder's been ordered to fight Andy Ruiz. AJ's looking at his next opponent, so there's not been a lot of discussion since then. We'll keep that communication going. I don't see AJ fighting Wilder in March, in all honesty, but the summer and certainly in 2023, yes. And I think he's got to beat Ruiz. Ruiz is a tough fight. Like, that's a really, really good fight. So we'll see who wins that fight. But if Wilder comes through, AJ had no problem facing him.
You said to me in Abu Dhabi that Deontay would have no problem stepping aside from a Ruiz fight to face AJ instead. Now, if the timelines match up to what you're saying, AJ fights in March, say if Deontay fights Andy Ruiz around then as well, do you think most likely then that would be the next fight for either of them?
It's a massive fight. I mean, you have to see what happens with Tyson Fury as well. Wilder is an obvious fight to make. Whether he fights Ruiz or not, that may determine what happens with Anthony Joshua. If they both fight in March, say, you go into a big fight in the summer, again, you've got Dillian, see what happens on Saturday night. But I really want to make AJ against Wilder in 2023. I think it's a standout fight, and he wants it as well. He wants all those big fights, and that's one of the biggest out there.
Wardley Gorman, a great fight on the weekend. Eddie, what's going to be the difference?
You know, it's such an intriguing fight because Fabio Wardley, it's very unusual for a fighter with really no amateur experience. I mean, what did he have? A couple of white collar fights or something like that, come through and win British heavyweight titles and move on. What he's shown is a great work ethic, 2, great ability, great athleticism. This is the toughest fight of his career by a mile. Now, we know Gorman got beat by Dubois, but he's a very good boxer, very experienced. He's got all that pedigree, those years of experience that Fabio hasn't got. But Fabio's got that swag, he's got that air of confidence. He's spiteful, he punches very hard. But for me, and I said to Tom Dallas, our matchmaker the other day, these are the kind of fights that we should be making. 50-50 fights, big domestic fights, especially for the British heavyweight title. Obviously, we're 1,000,000% behind Fabio, and I believe he wins this fight by knockout. Gorman's just got in the ring, so I won't say it too loud. But he's a very good fighter, Nathan Gorman. I just believe this is going to be the coming of age for Fabio Wardley on Saturday night.
Moving away from this, because I'm sure I'll grab you throughout the week, Eddie, just Parker-Ryder, your thoughts. I know you'll be backing John. What does he have to do to beat Zach?
It's a good fight. I'll rate Parker. I think he's a very big, strong super middleweight. It's a big chance for John Ryder. Be mandatory at some point for Canelo Alvarez. It's a 50-50 fight. John's got all the big fight experience, you know, coming off a good win against Danny Jacobs. But it's a tough fight because Jack Parker's a very good fighter.
Spoken about Canelo, I've seen Canelo's comments rather about wanting to come back in May, just have kind of a warm-up. What do you think is most likely for him if that's the case? Have you had any discussions on that?
Yeah, we got to speak to Eddie Reynoso and Sal in more depth. I spoke to Eddie the other night. They're talking about trying to make that Bivol fight for September, and we're looking at other options for May. Obviously, he's coming off the surgery, so it's the level of fight that he has. Listen, if John Ryder comes through on Saturday night, maybe he gets the fight against Canelo Alvarez in May. So more conversations to be had, but we've got to plan out the year for Dimitri Bivol, Canelo, and all these guys.
A couple of weeks ago, Eddie, we saw Dalton Smith retain his British title with victory against Casey Benjamin. I want to get your thoughts on his performance and also where do things stand now with you guys contractually trying to tie him down?
Yeah, we're putting our plan together for Dalton in 2023. Big fights, headlining in Sheffield, probably boxing internationally as well. I thought it was a good performance. Again, not a lot of people see what goes on behind the scenes, and he was very close to pulling out the fight the weekend before. Frank had conversations with the team and Paul Reddy and everybody, and you know, it was touch and go whether he was going to pull out. He wanted to fight. I think because of that, it wasn't his greatest performance, but Casey Benjamin boxed very well and is a very tricky, awkward opponent. And those kind of styles are very important in terms of development of a fighter. You know, taking Dalton Smith from just domestic level straight into European and world level is difficult to do and risky to do. But if you're fighting all kinds of different styles, that was a big step up from Sam O'Mason. There's other great fights out there for him. Sam Maxwell, Robbie Davis Jr., Lewis Ritson. They're beyond British level, but I want to see him in big fights headlining in Sheffield. So those conversations continue, and we want to see him win the Lonsdale belt.
So there's been a lot of competition for a number of fighters recently. Dalton's no different. Sky and Boxer have made it very vocal. They want to try and tie him down as well, with the end goal being a potential fight with Adam Azim. This will be a few years down the line at least.
Yeah, I don't think you can really sign an agreement with an Adam Azim fight.
I'm not saying that would be in the
I
agreement.
can see that would be the lure. Dalton Smith's levels above Adam Azim, in my opinion, with the stage they're at in his career. No disrespect to Whyte-Charlton, who's a good fighter. Dalton Smith is levels above Adam Azim. Now listen, in time, but you know, Sky have got their superstar at 140. We're very happy to have our superstar at 140 in Dalton Smith, and we see a very different route for Dalton Smith. We're not looking at the Adam Azim fight. I'm looking at Dalton Smith winning the Lonsdale belt outright, moving to European level, moving to Fringe World level, headlining in big fights, and moving on to challenge for a belt at 140. Probably before Adam Azim's even got to British title level. But Adam Azim, tremendous fighter, and one day down the line, hopefully, that could be a massive domestic fight. And you know, like I said, Sky have got their superstar there at 140, and we believe we've got the best fighter at 140 coming through domestically and even on the world scene in Dalton Smith, and we look forward to a big year in 2023.
Moving away from that, Eddie, it came out yesterday that Fury-Chisora pay-per-view's been announced at $26.95, matches what Usyk-Joshua was. Your thoughts on their pay-per-view?
Yeah, obviously it's not as big a fight for Usyk as Usyk-Joshua. I get it, Andy, you know, like, these fighters are making a lot of money. Tyson Fury wants a lot of money to fight. I know he was kindly saying that all tickets and pay-per-view should be free for the Andi-Joshua fight, but this one against Derek Chisora is £26.95. It's a very difficult, price-sensitive period that we're in now. It's difficult to sell pay-per-views, it's difficult to sell tickets. You've got to give more value than ever to the customer because times are hard. Coming up to Christmas, you know, they're going to struggle with the gate there on December 3rd. It's outdoors, obviously, and it's expensive. But, again, it's very difficult across the board at the moment. I've seen the response. It was never going to be a massive pay-per-view, but I get it. At the same time, you've got to find a way to make the numbers work. And it's a very difficult call to make the numbers work. And obviously $26.95 was the maths that they decided was the way to make the numbers work.
How many buys would you expect that to do, Eddie? And also, I know you won't know the fees and what have you, financial elements of the entire fight, but what do you think they need to achieve to make it at least a breakable or a profitable night?
It does between 200 and 300,000 buys, and they probably need it to do 400 to 500. I mean, like, this is, you know, you got to understand, Tyson Fury is a huge star, and he's not going to be boxing for small money. I know what Derek Chisora's making, I think most people do. And if the tickets haven't quite sold as well as anticipated, you're under a lot of pressure. But that's the job as a promoter, and you put your balls on the line sometimes to hit numbers. Sometimes you hit them, sometimes you don't hit them. I've been on both sides. It's always ugly, never pretty when you're on that side. But it's just difficult. It's a difficult, and Chisora's a big name. Obviously they've boxed twice already. Fury's a big star, but you're relying on people to spend that money at a difficult time. And, you know, we've got to make sure that across the board we deliver more value than ever to the customer. Otherwise, they're not going to buy. And then that's for tickets, that's for pay-per-views, that's for merchandise, that's for everything.
With that fight itself, a lot of people have started to kind of dismiss Derek's chances within it. How do you rate his chances? What does he have to do to...
Derek will always give it 120%, right? We know that he didn't have a lot of success in the first two fights. He has improved, he's become better, and it just really depends how switched on Tyson Fury is. If he switches off, Chisora can, you know, he can land that shot. Obviously Fury's a big favourite, but Del Boy's going to give it everything. You're not going to get a fighter in Chisora that's just going to go through the motions. He will try and win. The difficult thing with Tyson is, and he did it in the Dillian Whyte fight, he befriends you quite well, you know. So what he does is, you know, at the weigh-in, so Dillian, yeah, cuddle. You get in there, and next thing you're just tapping around, and boom, before you know it, you've been stung and the fight's over. Tyson's very clever in and out of the ring. And Chisora, Derek will go for it. He could become world heavyweight champion. We know it's a big ask, but he's a top man, Derek Chisora. And you know he's got fucking balls of steel and a heart of gold, and he'll give it everything.
Sticking with the heavyweight, we saw the IBF order Usyk-Hrgovic to take place next. Now, I know in the background, Fury and Usyk seem to be all agreed to take place next year, and I know you're working on potentially stepping aside there. Can you update us as to where things stand? Yeah,
obviously we're working under the instructions of Filip-Hrgovic. We work with Calla on Filip-Hrgovic. He's mandatory. We've requested purse bids. I think the WBA have now come out and said Daniel Dubois is also in line for that. Whenever you get an undisputed fight, belts start to fragment and things start moving. And it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to see the undisputed fight if they get that up and running. And then after that, the belts will get vacated and Philip will get his shot, Daniel Dubois will get his shot, and then you're going to see probably multiple world champions.
I know we always talk about wanting to see the best fight, the best, Eddie, but for yourself, Will it be a bit bitter to have not had AJ in there for an undisputed fight?
Yeah, I wanted, the goal was always for Anthony to become undisputed, and that's still the goal. And we believe he can get there. But right now, I had a call from Prince Khalid and the Saudis to say, oh, thank God, I know what the undisputed fight means to them. So we want to make sure, and whether people believe me or not, I do have sometimes the best interest of boxing at heart, and the undisputed heavyweight title fight is an important fight for the division, particularly for our partners in Saudi Arabia. So, we're up for finding a resolution. At the same time, we work for Fury-Chisora, and we have to push his request, which is absolutely, I want to fight for the world heavyweight title now.
Just on Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury's had some recent comments which have come to light. He was asked about if it's a glamour fight, and he said, no, there's no glamour in fighting a coward. None. I don't fight cowards.
But literally, was it a day before he said, I will not be happy unless I fight Anthony Joshua. It's wild. And in fact, if you read the comments now, people are finally going, hang on a minute, I'm just thinking about what Tyson Fury said, and none of it makes sense. A day or two before, he said, I will not be happy unless I fight Anthony Joshua. That fight must be made. The day later, he says, I will never fight Anthony Joshua, he's a coward. I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that fight take place before Usyk. Like, that's the kind of fight, Andy, that one day everyone just gets together and the fight's made. Stranger things have happened. But I think, win, lose, draw, whatever happens, you will see that fight. And I think you'll see it next year.
Do you think we'll see it before it's one of those that it's not past the best, basically?
Yeah, because right now it's as big as it could possibly be. We don't want to see it in 5 years, we want to see it in 2023.
Just moving on from that one and just sticking with AJ rather, his trainer front, he's come out and again he said he wants to float about, he wants to work with different people, he doesn't want to necessarily tie himself down to one specific trainer. Is that a right move for him? Is that the correct?
No, look, AJ will select his own training team. He's got to make sure that he's comfortable. He had a good experience with Robert Garcia, but this next period leading up to Christmas is his time to get the training team together, get everything in order, start camp hard and fast at the beginning of January and move into a fight end of March, early April. And we're working on that now, and we're not far away from at least announcing the date for AJ's return.
Now, Eddie, I'm sure you're fed up of talking about PEDs and drugs within the sport, but he came out, I think it was a couple of days ago now, about Zolani Tete having failed a UCAD test reportedly before his fight with Jason Cunningham, in which he stopped him in. I just want to get your thoughts on what you've read about it and how you'd like to see it.
Probably as much as you, I don't know. Was it a fight on the night? Was it?
Apparently he failed his test, he took the test rather before the fight. I don't know when results came out, when they'd have gotten back.
Again, I'll probably get the blame for that one. Wasn't my fight, wasn't my show. But the main problem a lot of the time is the reporting times between tests. And UCAD are horrifically slow at reporting tests. Also, with UCAD, there's no reporting. So you don't find out if you've passed the test, you only find out if you failed a test, right? With VADA, all the results are published to the teams. So I would like to, there's a lot of things coming off the Conor Benn situation that I would like to see improve, but clearer testing so that there's like reporting on tests. Tete would have taken his test, I don't know, when he arrived, 2 weeks before, did they know about it before the fight? UCAD have a very strict confidentiality rule that you can't publish that information until the hearing is out. Did the promoter know about it? I'm not going to, they want to dig at me and try and, but I'm not like that. At the end of the day, it's their business. Ask the board, ask Frank Warren, not one for me.
It seemed to be a genuine belief of none of them knew, the teams didn't know about it in terms of Steffi and Jason Cunningham.
Well, they wouldn't because it's confidential. This is one of the issues with UCAD. Same thing, Andy, with Dillian Whyte against Oscar Rivas. There's a confidentiality. Now, he had a hearing before that fight and was cleared. But obviously Tete didn't have a hearing, but who knew? That's what I don't know, and I'm not here to start winding people up like other people. At the end of the day, ask the board, ask the promoter, and obviously if you're Jason Cunningham, you're saying, hang on a minute, I just got stopped by someone who failed a drugs test, what happens now?
I'm sure that will be followed up by the team this week at the Parker-Ryder events, but just sticking with drugs in the sport, Conor Benn, what's the latest?
Just that the hearing, if you like, is underway. The WBC have been in contact with his team and the legal teams from both sides. All the information's been requested by all the scientists. I'm not involved with that. I don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully sooner the better. I don't know when you're talking about 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We just want to know ASAP. Is he going to be found not guilty or is he going to receive a ban? and then we can move forward with planning Conor Benn's career.
Have you had any discussions with Conor or other teams about whatever?
He was in the office the other day, I wasn't there. I've spoken to his lawyer a couple of times. We're not involved in the case. I haven't seen any paperwork going backwards and forwards. They're very confident in their position, as is the scientific team, but we're going to have to let the panel and the legal system take its course, and we'll see what the results are.
Final one, Eddie, Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia agreed for DAZN and Showtime as a joint pay-per-view. Just get your thoughts and seeing that one get over the line.
I mean, well done, Stephen Espinoza, Joe Markowski. Obviously tremendous for DAZN. They've got fights first, but hopefully we see that fight in April. Exactly the kind of fight we need in boxing. Tremendous fight, and well done to everyone involved.
Who do you edge toward?
Who are?
Who do you edge towards in that fight?
Gervonta Davis.
Eddie, thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.